Hi everybody. In this video we're going to be talking about solving systems of equations using the substitution method. The questions and problems that we have today are from kudasoftware.com. Okay, so when do we use substitution? There's a lot of methods. Substitution is useful when you have a variable already solved for, so it's already by itself, or one that can be easily solved for. So here's some examples of that. In this one, y is already by itself. In this one, y is already by itself. In these next two, no variables are by themselves yet, but it would be pretty easy here to add 4 to both sides and then have that y by itself. Or in this last example, if I added 2y to both sides, I would get x by itself. Okay, so if that can be done pretty easily, then it's good to use substitution. Okay, so here are the steps. First step, you solve one of the equations for one variable, like we just saw. And then we're going to use that piece, whatever it equaled, and replace it, that same variable, in the other equation. That eliminates that variable, so then we solve the new equation for the remaining variable. We'll have a number answer then, like x equals 2, and then we would take that number, 2, whatever it equals, and plug it in to x for the other equation and then solve for y. So what in the world am I talking about? Let's look at some examples. So first step is to solve one variable in one of the equations. Well, that part is already done for us. Y equals 6x minus 11. That's your substitute. We're going to take just this part, the 6x minus 11, and we are going to replace y with that expression in the other equation. I'm going to write that out. Negative 2x minus 3, and here's where the substitution comes in, times 6x minus 11 equals negative 7. So if you notice now, there's no y in my equation. I have it to just x, which means that I can solve for x. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do the distributive property with that 3. Okay. And then we'll combine like terms. Negative 2x minus 18x is negative 20x. So negative 20x plus 33 equals negative 7. I'll subtract 33 from both sides. That gives me negative 20x equals negative 40. If I divide both sides by negative 20, I get x equals 2. So I'm almost there. Now I'm going to take that x equals 2, and we're gonna come up here and change this x to the 2. So now I'm going to say y equals 6, and this is where the substitution comes in again, times 2 minus 11. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 minus 11 is 1. Now we have our answer is 2, 1. All right, let's look at one where one of the variables is not already solved for. So you get to pick. You can solve for x or y. In this problem though, I'm going to try to find the easiest thing to solve for. So I think that would be this y. It's positive, it doesn't have a coefficient, it should be pretty simple. So I'm going to change this equation. I'm just going to rewrite it to start off with. Okay, if I just add 4x to both sides of my equation, I get y equals 6 plus 4x. They're not like terms, you can't put them together. But now we have a substitute for y. Okay, so that means that I'm going to change this y to 6 plus 4x. So we will say negative 5x minus, and it's really important that we're subtracting that entire piece, so put it in parentheses. minus 6 plus 4x equals 21. Go ahead and do the distributive property with that negative. Remember, it's kind of like there's a negative 1 sitting there. So that would be negative 5x minus 6 minus 4x equals 21. Combine like terms. I have negative 5x and negative 4x. That makes negative 9x. Bring down the minus 6 equals 21. And I'm running out of room, so I'll skip a step here. If I add 6 to both sides, that gives me negative 9x equals 27. If I divide both sides by negative 9, I get x equals negative 3. Okay, now that we have x equals negative 3, we need to figure out what y is. So you could plug x, or plug negative 3 in for x in one of these spots and then solve for y. But I think because we've already solved for y over here, it's much easier to plug the x into that equation. And it doesn't matter, you should get the same answer either way, but I like to make it as easy as possible. So if y is already by itself, I can just say, well, y has to equal 6 plus 4 times x, but x is negative 3. So y equals 6, that would be a negative 12, so 6 minus 12, which is negative 6. So the answer to this one would be negative 3, negative 6. Okay, if you feel comfortable at this point, I would stop and go ahead and go to the practice. If you are still kind of struggling, I have 2 more examples for us. Okay, in this one, y is already by itself. This is your substitute. Okay, so that means I'm going to take this equation, the 2x minus 3y, except instead of saying y, I'm going to write out my substitute, or what we know y is equal to. That is x minus 1. That got rid of the y, so now I can solve that equation for x. So I'm going to start with the distributive property. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3 equals negative 1. Combine like terms, so I have 2x minus 3x is negative 1x. Just going to say negative x plus 3 equals negative 1. If I subtract 3 from both sides, I get negative x equals negative 4. Negative x equals negative 4. You can think of that as like a negative 1 there. And if we divide both sides by negative 1, we get x equals 4. Okay. Almost there. Now we're going to take x equals negative 4. And we're going to plug it into the other equation for y. So I'm going to say y equals x, I'm going to leave a blank there, x minus 1. But we know x is 4. So y equals 4 minus 1, which is 3. So my answer to this one is 4, 3. Okay, last example. This one we need to solve for a variable. So think about which variable you would solve for, which one looks like it's already the most by itself. I think x, and hopefully you think that too. So we're going to solve for that x, so all we would need to do to this equation is add 2y to both sides. So that would give me x equals 11 plus 2y. I can't combine the 11 and the 2y together because 2y has a y and 11 does not. They are not like terms. Okay, that is your substitute. So we're going to go to the other equation. Okay, and we're gonna change it using that substitute. So I'm gonna write negative 7 times x, but I'm gonna change x, minus 2y equals negative 13. So the substitute 11 plus 2y is going to go in the same spot where the x was. Okay, so now we're going to multiply that 7 Negative 7 times 11 is negative 77. Negative 7 times 2y is negative 14y. Bring down the minus 2y equals negative 13. Combine like terms, bring down the negative 77. Negative 14y minus 2y is negative 16y equals negative 13. Add 77 to both sides. That gives us negative 16y equals 64. Then if we divide both sides by negative 16, we get y is negative 4. Okay, now that is our substitute for y. So I'm going to come back to the equation that already has x by itself. Just because it's easier, you don't have to. You can plug it into one of the other ones if you want. And we're going to say x equals 11 plus 2 times negative 4. Alright, 2 times negative 4 is 8. So we're going to say 11 minus 8 because it's negative. 11 minus 8 is 3. So my answer to this one is 3, negative 4. Okay, I hope that helped with solving systems of equations by substitution. If you have questions about specific examples, leave it in the comments. See you guys.